You were never meant to pray to power. You were meant to become it. Long before the gods had names, before temples rose from stone or dogmas split the sky, there were women who didn't ask for permission to be sacred. They were called the dragon priestesses of Atlantis, but not because they tamed dragons, because they were the fire. They carried an intelligence older than language, a force that didn't kneel, didn't bow, didn't wait. These women weren't mystical accessories to ancient myths. They were the very mothers of ancient magic, bleeding wisdom, breathing vibration, and birthing worlds through silence. And yet, history turned their names into metaphors, their temples into legends, their voices into myth. But their magic, that ancient spiraling current, never died. It just went underground, into dreams, into the womb, into the bloodlines that modern science dares not touch. You feel it, don't you? That subtle pull toward something unnamed. Toward the wild, the forbidden, the real. This isn't a fairy tale, it's not a history lesson, it's a reminder. And if a part of you has always sensed that your body carries memory, sacred memory, then you already know the veil is thinning. And once you hear what was buried beneath Atlantis, you'll never see yourself the same way again. They say some memories don't live in the mind, they hum in the bones. Long before pyramids reached for the sky, before priests wore robes or prophets wrote verses, there were temples that didn't rise from stone. They rose from sound. These were places that didn't echo with rules or rituals, but with rhythm, with the low golden thrum of the cosmos breathing through the earth. And at the center of this resonance stood the women, not queens, not witches, not saints, but something older, something deeper. They didn't command armies or kneel to gods. They were the bridge between heaven and soil. They were the dragon priestesses, the living flame wrapped in flesh. They didn't learn from scrolls, no parchment, no sermons. Their training was vibrational, a kind of remembering that didn't come from outside but from within. You didn't become one by climbing a ladder. You descended into breath, into sensation, into the trembling space between silence and song. Imagine learning not with words but through tone, as if your bones were tuning forks and the world itself was a teacher. The flame they carried wasn't a metaphor, it was real, a luminous force that flickered in their cells and flared when they moved in devotion. It didn't consume, it activated, lit up the parts of you that you've been told to quiet, the ones that know without needing proof. Picture a woman standing at the center of a temple that breathes with her. The air around her shimmers, not from heat, but from presence. That's the kind of energy we've forgotten how to name. Today, we chase power through status, performance, control. But they knew another path. They became the power, not by effort, but by attunement. Their bodies were spells, their gaze, a doorway, their silence, a roar you could feel in your chest. And when they walked, it wasn't for display. It was ceremony. Each footstep a drumbeat, each breath a bridge. They didn't teach magic. They reminded you that you already had it. And maybe you felt that flicker without knowing what it was. A sudden heat rising in your belly during meditation. A dream of a staircase made of light. A strange knowing when you touch the earth barefoot and your heart skips a beat for no reason. These aren't accidents. They're echoes. Subtle reminders that you've been here before. That part of you remembers the flame. So start there. Light a candle. Not for aesthetics, but for connection. Breathe with it. Watch where your attention goes. That's not distraction. That's direction. That's the flame knocking gently on your consciousness, asking if you're ready to return. They honored the silence like we honor achievement, but their silence wasn't void. It was alive. A kind of sacred hum that held more wisdom than words ever could. They would sit for hours, motionless, and entire galaxies would spin behind their eyelids. No need to speak, no need to prove. And maybe that's the medicine we need now, in a world that never shuts up, where we scroll and post and seek validation like it's oxygen. Maybe the next step isn't more noise, maybe it's more listening. So try it. Take 15 minutes, no phone, no playlist, just breath and the question you're afraid to ask. Let the stillness answer you. Because to walk the path of a dragon priestess was never about being chosen. It was about choosing truth over noise, presence over distraction, mystery over certainty. It was about learning to trust what you feel, even when you can't explain it, especially then. And perhaps that world, that sacred hum, never really left. Perhaps it's curled up inside you right now, under your ribs, beneath the rush, beneath the rolls, waiting, not for permission, but for a pause, for a breath deep enough to remember that you too were made of flame. The serpent was never the villain. That's just the version that survived, the one that served those afraid of what the serpent truly guarded. But beneath the edits, beyond the shame projected onto her coiled body, there is a truth older than language. The serpent is a current, a pulse, a memory that moves, not just through myth, but through you, through the marrow in your bones, the river of your spine, the tides of your emotions, and the stories buried in your blood. She doesn't ask to be worshipped. She asks to be felt. In Atlantis, they didn't call it Kundalini as a theory. They called it Kundal, a presence, a living force, curled not just at the base of the body, but at the roots of consciousness itself, like breath waiting to be exhaled, like lightning holding still. The priestesses of the old temples didn't study this current. They embodied it. Their steps hummed with it. Their eyes carried it. Their voices moved it. They didn't explain energy. They were energy. And when they walked into a space, you felt it, like a shift in pressure, like something invisible bowing into the room. This power was never passed down through scrolls. It was transmitted in quieter, stranger ways, through bloodlines, through breath, through the flicker of presence. They say a true initiate could awaken dormant memory in a child just by humming near their cradle, not teaching, triggering, stirring, activating, because this wasn't information. It was inheritance, lineage memory, sleeping in the DNA, waiting for the right tone to ripple it awake. And maybe that's happened to you. Someone enters your life, and suddenly you remember things you never learned. You dream symbols you've never seen. You feel homesick for places you've never visited. That's not nostalgia, that's serpent current. And their voices, they weren't just beautiful. They were magnetic. A chant wasn't sound. It was a doorway. A single syllable, drawn out with breath and intention, could alter the architecture of emotion. What we now call electromagnetic frequency was once simply known as song. Their chants weren't performed. They were released. Frequencies weren't entertainment. They were alignment. Some of this survives faintly in overtone chanting, in ancient scales, in the hum that sometimes rises from your own chest when you're alone and raw and real. That sound, that's not random. That's memory vibrating. But perhaps the most secret aspect of their magic was their relationship with the womb, not as biology, as compass, as oracle. They believed the uterus could listen, not just to the body, but to the stars. It was both receiver and transmitter. They tracked emotions not as disorders, but as navigational data. Lunar tides weren't metaphors, they were instructions. The body didn't just respond to the cosmos, it corresponded with it. Women today still carry that map, in dreams, in cravings, in the ache that comes without reason at full moon. Begin with a notebook. Track your waves, not just the physical. Track the emotional, the energetic, the intuitive. You're not charting symptoms. You're reading the stars through your skin. And the tears, and those weren't signs of fragility. They were tools. They wept as part of the rite, not to release pain, but to transmit signal. Because every tear holds a charge, a tone, a code. They cried not just from sadness, but from activation, from resonance, and you know this. You've cried, haven't you? Without knowing why? That wasn't weakness. That was magic moving. Grief, joy, awe. They all ride the same current when it's deep enough. Let it flow, let it speak. Let the tears fall backward if they must, back to the source. Some rivers do that, the ancient ones. The serpent has never belonged to one people. She slithered through the temples of Egypt, coiled in the stonework of Angkor, danced in the feathers of Quetzalcoatl, and whispered in the tongues of the Nagas. Always the same spiral, always the same memory. Cultures changed, but those who knew her shape never forgot her rhythm, because it isn't cultural, it's cosmic, and it lives in you whether you name it or not. So the next time you feel something stir along your spine, a subtle flicker, a quiet ache, a pulse behind your thoughts, pause. Listen, not with your ears, with your remembering. She's not rising to scare you. She's rising to return, to move through you the way she once moved through priestesses, prophets, poets, to remind you that magic isn't something you study, it's something you carry. Not everyone will understand. That's okay. The serpent never sought the crowd. She always moved through the few, the sensitive, the listening, the ones who never quite fit the mold. And if you're still reading this, perhaps it's because you already know, not with your mind, but with your marrow. The current is real, the memory is alive, and the serpent was never lost. She was simply waiting. They didn't carry scrolls because they were the scrolls. Flesh became parchment, breath became script. The dragon priestesses were living archives, not women who memorized teachings, but women who embodied them. Their bones remembered things that the mind could never grasp. Their wombs pulsed with the cadence of stars, and every contraction, every sigh, every rhythm of their blood was a transmission, encrypted, yes, but never silent. They called it the Dragon Code. Not a doctrine, not a doctrine, a frequency, a presence. A knowing that hums just beneath the skin, waiting to be heard with something deeper than ears. And here's the paradox. It wasn't passed down by instruction. It was unlocked by stillness, by attunement. These women didn't chase knowledge. They listened for it. In a world drunk on domination, they chose surrender. Not the kind that weakens, but the kind that widens. Surrender to the spiral, to the breath, to the quiet moment when the inhale disappears into the exhale, and something holy flickers into view. They didn't demand answers. They became vessels where answers arrived uninvited, soft as rain on stone. That's what it means to hold the Dragon Code. You stop forcing, you start feeling, try it. Just once. Sit without trying to do it right. Let your spine find its own rhythm. Let your breath move as it wishes, like smoke rising from an unseen fire. And then notice, not with judgment but with curiosity, how the silence around you isn't empty. It's encoded, and it's been speaking this whole time. You see, power to the priestesses was never loud. It wasn't spectacle. It was coherence. They didn't shout their spells. They whispered. Sometimes they didn't even speak, and they breathed. But that breath carried frequency. It carried structure. Because breath isn't just survival. It's shaping. It's sculpting. With each exhale, they released intention into form. They didn't try to manifest. They harmonized with what already wanted to be born. You want to feel this again? Start with breath. Simple, honest, box breathing, alternate nostrils, or just a slow inhale through your nose, a soft exhale through parted lips. Nothing fancy, but everything sacred. The more coherent your breath, the more your field realigns. And when your field realigns, the world around you responds. Why? Because you're not separate from it. You never were. Back then, they didn't carry wands. Their breath was the wand, their wombs the cauldrons, their hearts the compass. They didn't need elaborate rituals. Their bodies were the ritual, every movement ceremonial, every tear an offering, every gaze a sigil. They cooked with magic, bled with intention, slept with oracles humming in their dreams. They understood something we've forgotten. The sacred doesn't always arrive in fireworks. Sometimes it comes in a sigh, a still gaze, a presence so full it quiets a room without saying a word. Sound strange? It should, because this knowledge was hidden on purpose, buried beneath centuries of shame, distraction, and noise. But it didn't die. Codes don't die, they wait. And the Dragon Code. It's been curled quietly in your cells, in the still center of your being, like a song you used to know but haven't heard in a while. Until now. The dragon was never slain. She was silenced. Not in myth, in you, in your everyday rush, in your endless scrolling, in your disconnection from the temple you live inside, your body. But the silence you sometimes feel between your thoughts, that isn't emptiness. That's her. That's the pause where power breathes. That's where she lives. So the next time you're overwhelmed, stop. Just stop. Not to escape, but to return. Place a hand on your belly. Breathe. Feel what you usually miss. That is the altar. That is the spell. And that, beloved, is the Dragon Code remembering itself through you. It's not dramatic, it's not flashy, but it's real. So real it humbles you. And if you're still reading, not just with your eyes but with your body, then something inside you already knows. The scroll is opening, the breath is becoming spell, the womb is remembering she was always a temple. It didn't happen all at once. Atlantis didn't just vanish in a thunderclap. It crumbled slowly, frequency by frequency. The land fell, yes, but long before the waves came, something deeper collapsed. Reverence. The feminine current, once honored, began to be feared. And when fear takes the throne, silence becomes law. The priestesses weren't erased. They were muted, gently then violently. Magic was never the real threat. Remembering was. Because when people remember their own power, they become less obedient. And so, the ones who carried that remembrance in their wombs, in their breath, had to be exiled. Some were forced into temples that no longer remembered how to listen. Others crossed oceans in dreams, scattered like seeds in wind. But not one of them vanished. They just changed form. They became the veiled figures in ancient myths, the mothers of strange children, the witches in the woods. They slipped into folklore, poetry, lullabies. Sometimes they appear in your dreams as nameless women in white, or the ones with gold eyes who say nothing, but leave you shaken. That's not fiction. That's encoded memory, and you might have carried them across lifetimes tucked under your ribs like forgotten pages. Want to feel their presence now? Try walking into a forest. No phone, no music, just let the trees look at you. Or sit in an old church and pay attention to the silence between the echoes. Their frequency lingers in spaces that don't rush, in textures that haven't been digitized, in the breath between stories. And if a tear falls without reason, let it. It might not be your sadness. It might be a memory the world has yet to name, and you know not all of them fled. Some stayed, hidden in plain sight, rewriting the code through symbols, through herbs, through midwifery. You'll find traces of them in medieval grimoires, in Celtic chants, in the hands of the women who knew exactly when to speak and when to remain utterly, defiantly silent. Their power wasn't in visibility, it was in vibration, in the spaces they refused to fill. So maybe the fall of Atlantis wasn't just a sinking, but a scattering, a great dispersal of sacred memory. And maybe, just maybe, those frequencies weren't lost. They were planted, and if that's true, it's possible one of those seeds bloomed inside you, quietly while the world was busy watching the wrong things. Some memories don't come back through thought. They arrive through sensation. A sudden chill, a song that brings tears you can't explain, a dream where you walk barefoot through pillars of light. Sound familiar? That's not imagination. That's resonance. The womb remembers, and not just the physical womb, the symbolic one. The inner space in men and women alike where creation stirs and old songs echo. You've probably felt it without knowing what it was. That odd ache when you see serpents in art. That unexpected weepiness during a native flute melody. Or maybe it's that feeling of coming home when you read about ancient temples, even if you've never set foot in one. These aren't random reactions, they're soul signals. Quiet confirmations that something ancient inside you is stretching, waking, remembering its shape. We're taught to call these moments coincidence, or to dismiss them as emotional. But what if emotion is a form of memory transmission? These priestesses knew that tears were sacred, the body's way of making vibration visible. Want to begin this reconnection? Keep a dream journal. Track your cycle, not just physically but emotionally. Notice what triggers sacred grief. That's your soul pointing to what it lost and what it's reclaiming. Today, the Dragon Code doesn't show up in fancy robes or lost languages. It shows up in everyday rituals, in how you touch your body after a shower, in how you breathe when no one's watching, in the way you speak to children or to yourself. There's magic in every mundane gesture. When done with awareness, even the way you cook, clean, or walk becomes a spell. Try it. Stir your tea while thinking of healing. You'll feel the difference. This isn't about perfection, it's about reverence. One woman lighting a candle with intention can shift the air in a room. One man placing his hand on his heart and listening instead of reacting, that's sacred. The womb that remembers isn't just a physical space, it's a field. And in that field, small acts carry cosmic weight. You don't need to prove anything. You just need to be present and pay attention to what stirs. And sometimes all it takes is one breath, One slow, conscious inhale while placing your hand over your belly or chest. That's how it begins. Not with fireworks, but with softness, with stillness, with remembering that the temple never needed to be rebuilt. It only needed to be felt again. It doesn't start with thunder. It starts with quiet. The kind of quiet that makes you squirm at first, then soften. Initiation doesn't need a ceremony or a teacher in robes. It begins the moment you stop running from your own stillness. That strange pull you feel in moments of silence. That's not boredom. That's the call. The same call the priestesses once followed, barefoot, heart first, into the dark. Stillness is not emptiness. It's sacred ground. In the old days, they called it the threshold. The space between breath and thought, between question and answer. It's in the silence after a deep sigh, in the pause before tears come. Ever felt that? That heavy light sensation in your chest? That's the dragon line stirring. You don't summon it. You allow it. And trust me, that's way harder and far more powerful. Sometimes the dragon doesn't roar. It whispers. In the wind through your window at night. In the way your skin tingles when you step into nature. In dreams where you meet women who say nothing, but whose eyes seem to know everything. Don't dismiss those moments. They're not random. They're initiatory. Try this. Spend 5 minutes each night with your hand on your chest. Just listening. No agenda. Just presence. See what speaks. We live in a world that glorifies control, but the dragon line isn't activated by effort. It's awakened by surrender. Not the kind that gives up, but the kind that opens to nuance, opens to emotion, opens to not knowing. The priestesses didn't claim certainty. They embodied mystery, and mystery doesn't shout, it waits. Until you're soft enough to feel it moving through you. You might find it while washing dishes, or in a line of poetry that cracks your heart open, or in the moment right before sleep, when something ancient stirs behind your ribs. That's not imagination, that's invitation. The dragon line lives in your nervous system, your gut, your dreams. It doesn't demand rituals. It is the ritual. All you need is willingness. Willingness to feel, to stop hiding from what's already awake inside you. And once you hear it, even once, you're never quite the same. Because it doesn't just change your thoughts. It changes your way of being. The way you walk, the way you speak, the way you listen to others without needing to fix them. That's initiation, not a lesson, but a shift. And once it begins, the temple within doesn't close again. So now, will you keep walking through life anesthetized, numbing your intuition, second-guessing the call that's been echoing through your bones for lifetimes? Or will you start listening to your body like it's sacred scripture? Will you trust your dreams more than your doubts? Will you let the dragon line awaken, not in theory, but in the way you breathe, speak, love, and create? Because knowing this changes things, and pretending you didn't feel it, that's no longer an option. You've been initiated now, not by me, not by a ritual, but by your own remembrance. The temple never needed walls. The magic never needed permission. And you were never meant to be ordinary. If this stirred something ancient in you, don't walk away quietly. Comment below what part of this truth hit you hardest. Like the video because others are looking for this flame too. Subscribe so you don't forget again. And turn on notifications because the next time we meet, the dragon might call you by name. To understand more about subjects related to cosmic rays, esotericism, theosophy and advanced spirituality, and access knowledge little known by the general public, access the link in the first pinned comment and discover the ebook, What Are Cosmic Rays, written by Bathajal.